In the 90s, there was a war waging between video game companies, the consoles that they released, and the people who played them. Video games were becoming a huge industry, and more people were gaining access to them at home as time went on. But there's one corner of video game history from around this era that has always fascinated me: the world of video games on the PC. I didn't really play console games growing up, but I experienced a plethora of PC games on different types of hardware. And it's a part of my personal history with video games that I've been really curious about recently. So in today's video, I'm going to be going over my early memories with PC games.
Stars and Stripes!
Hello and welcome to another Carrot Scraps video, and by another I mean the 144th. And of course, I wanted to give some disclaimers before we start the video. Now in today's video, I kind of just wanted to reminisce about the world of PC games from before, during, and after the 90s. This is an era of video games that have always been somewhat mysterious to me, and after recently getting back into some of the games that I played when I was younger, I've become even more fascinated with them than usual. And so I just wanted to talk about my history with them and what I'm planning on doing in the future. But I wanted to make it clear that this is not some comprehensive retrospective. It's just some old guy talking about video games that he can barely get running on his computer. In addition, I also wanted to mention that some of the gameplay I'll be featuring in this video won't be from my own playthroughs. Some of these games I genuinely can't get working on my computer at the moment, and so I'm borrowing footage from other people who have posted it on YouTube. And I'll be crediting them in the video, so make sure to check out their channels if you're interested. Anyway, with all of that out of the way, let's talk about PC games from my past. Growing up, some of the first video games I ever played were on my parents' MS-DOS computer, and on that computer I played a couple of games for the first time, including some of the games that would be my first games ever. Now the games that I consider to be the first games I ever played are either Wolfenstein 3D or Mario Land 3 Wario Land, and I'm not sure which of the two I played first, but I know it's between those two, and so obviously there's a lot of love and nostalgia for those games. And Wolfenstein is a game that not only did I play a ton growing up, but that I've played a lot as an adult as well. It is an absolutely fantastic game. It's the grandfather of all first-person shooters, and it's not hard to imagine why I'm so into first-person shooters now, with this being one of my first video games. I will say that I've returned to it in recent years, and while I still do love and enjoy it and appreciate it, it does suffer a little bit from its age. Not from the gameplay, but more so from the level design, in my personal opinion. Now, something that I always thought was funny about this was my dad let me play Wolfenstein 3D, and I don't think my mom had a huge issue with it, but it definitely was a discussion that I shouldn't be playing this game, especially since part of the reason why we never had console video games that hooked up to the TV, or at least the reason I was told, was because they didn't want me to get lost in the world of video games, and so they felt safe letting me play video games on the computer or on a portable device like the Game Boy, and yet Wolfenstein 3D apparently was completely appropriate for me. But either way, this is a game that obviously shaped my love for video games in the future, and definitely formed an affection for this style of game, and just in general, it's just a fantastic game that I still appreciate and still return to consistently. Now, the other big game that I played on that old DOS computer was a game called Jill of the Jungle. In fact, it might have been the only other game I played on that computer, and like Wolfenstein, they share a lot in common. For example, both of them were released in 1992, and both of them have incredible soundtracks that I still listen to and that absolutely enchanted me as a kid. But either way, similar to Wolfenstein, when I was returning to Jill of the Jungle to make this video, I realized that this is a side-scroller, a platforming 2D side-scroller, and that happens to be my favorite genre of game. That is the type of game that I prefer the most, and it's one that I am always attracted to, and it's just wild to me, even though I've always known that this game has existed in my past, looking back and seeing another platformer similar to Wario Land, it's just exciting to me to see those threads building what would become my preferences for the future. Very similar, once again, to Wolfenstein being a first-person shooter, and that potentially laying the groundwork for my preferences as well. Now, because it's difficult to get Jill of the Jungle running on modern hardware, hardware, from my experience, I haven't played this game in a long time, but I have profoundly fond memories of it. That being said, I am very happy to say that Jill of the Jungle, along with the other 2 games that I didn't even know existed in its trilogy, are available on GOG, which is something that I wish I could say for most of the other PC games in this video. And so that's kind of the general idea of these 2 games. I think that they were the only games that I had available on that MS-DOS, but they clearly had a huge impact on me, and I'm sure a lot of you can share that experience, playing a handful of games, maybe 1 or 2, that really solidified what your preferences would be in the future, and games that stuck with you forever. But moving on from that, let's talk about another era of my PC video game history. Now, other than my dad's DOS computer, I would often visit my grandmother or my Nana, and she had an amazing PC setup. I don't know exactly what she had, but I remember it was exciting to visit her house because I could play PC games all I wanted. I had a huge stack of games, and I would just play. I would be left in front of it, and I would play whatever I wanted. This was where I was first introduced to Lego Island, which is still one of my favorite games to this day. I think it's an incredible game. I've made a video about it on the channel. It's a game that I listen to the soundtrack to all the time. You'll find that a lot of my affection for these PC games has to do with the soundtrack for a lot of these games. I love the music that's composed, and I love the soundboard that's used. I think there are a lot of unique sounds for a lot of these games that I just prefer, and I'd like to hear more of. But Lego Island also is just a weird and unique looking and playing game, and I wish there were easier ways to play it. Once again, this is another theme with a lot of these older PC games, is that even though we have newer technology now, we have newer PCs now, you'll find it's more difficult than ever to play these older PC games. It's not as easy to find backwards compatibility for these older games, and a lot of them are just being lost to history, although there of course are other ways to play these games, but from the more conventional simple approach, it's difficult for someone like me to get a game like Lego Island running on their computer. When I did my review for Lego Island back in the day, I was able to get it running on a newer computer, but certain parts of the game wouldn't load, which was super lame. But Lego Island is one of my favorite games ever made. Yeah, I don't know if I would call it the best game ever made, but I just absolutely love it. I think it's awesome. Another game that I played a lot at my grandmother's house was Sonic 3D Blast, and I still love this game. This is potentially my favorite Sonic game. Again, I love the music, but I also love the gameplay, and I like the over-the-top, I'm hoping I'm not wrong in saying isometric view, and I've returned to the game a couple times, and I quite enjoy it. I see a lot of people make fun of this game as, you know, a bad Sonic game. Maybe I need to revisit it and adjust my opinions, but at least in my memory, I've had a lot of fun playing Sonic 3D Blast, but I guess we'll see once I return to this game in the future. And then there were a number of other games that my grandmother had that I would play often, but those were the 2 games that came to my mind immediately when I thought of big games on the PC that I played growing up, and games that I would want to play when I visited her house. And those are games that have stuck with me, especially Lego Island, to this day, and that I hope that, you know, Lego Island, I hope the Lego company makes it easier to play that game. I would love, not an HD remake, but a re-release, you know? Especially finding out that Jill of the Jungle is available on GOG. Why can't we get Lego Island on GOG? That would be absolutely fantastic. But yeah, so her PC was huge for me, especially again because it was such a different computer than my dad's computer. It was so much more sophisticated, it was so much more powerful, and the graphics and the types of games that I could play were, you know, just a world of difference. So it was always an adventure playing PC games at my Nana's house. Now, when it came to playing games and using computers at school, I had a couple different experiences. I started out with DOS computers in my grade school years, and actually I think during my after-school classes or camp, I would go to a camp after school, I had different computers that were, again, a little bit more sophisticated. So during the day and during my grade school, you know, years, I would play on DOS computers, and we would exclusively play educational games. And what's amazing about this, and part of what I wanted to talk about in this video today, and kind of what inspired this video, are two games in particular. And those two games were Word Rescue and Math Rescue. And these games I have been searching for years. I've been trying to find the names of these games. I've been searching like DOS directories and lists of DOS games, and desperately trying to find these games. And you got to remember, you know, before finally discovering the titles of these games and all of these memories came flooding back, before I got that, I only had like little details about Math Rescue and Word Rescue. So it was hard to describe the game to a person, let alone the internet. And it wasn't until I watched a video that was just, I think it was just titled like DOS games that you might remember from your childhood, and I prayed and crossed my fingers while I was watching it that it would have these two games, these games that I didn't know, you know, what they were called, or I barely knew what they looked like. And towards the center of the video, there they were, Word Rescue and Math Rescue. And I was so excited to finally unlock this part of my childhood and this part of my nostalgia. There was a point in my life for a while where I really thought that I wouldn't be able to remember this, and I would just have to say goodbye to it. And I'm just so happy that I was able to unlock that. And to my surprise, this is another game that was released in 1992, a big year for DOS games. But anyway, so I had computer class in my early days. I think this would have been from somewhere between 1st and 4th grade, maybe even 1st and 5th grade. We would have computer class. This actually might have been 1st through 3rd, and we would play these games. We would learn how to use the computer, and I think our class was split into groups. So one part of the class would use Word documents and learn how to use Word, and the other half of the class would be able to play a game, and they could choose what game they wanted to play, but every game was educational in some way. And I suppose that would switch every week, or maybe every other day, however often we had computer class. And I loved these two games. I loved these games so much. Again, it's easy to see why platformers are my favorite genre when I had so many of them growing up. I actually didn't even realize how many of them I had on the PC growing up, but these games, really, like, when I think of platformers, that's kind of the natural way I think about navigating in video game world. So it's interesting seeing these games have, you know, such a place in my early, you know, video game playing. I am disappointed though, even though I love the way these games I love the way these games look, and I am excited to play them again. I'm very disappointed when I looked at gameplay for these games. The music just isn't there. I just celebrated the music in all these other games, but Word Rescue and Math Rescue, unfortunately, no offense to the composers, I just don't love the music as much, and I'm really sad about that, because there was a secret part of me that was like, the music has to be amazing in these two games. They're DOS games. I love DOS games. I love DOS soundtracks. It has to be good, and unfortunately, it's just not that great in my opinion. I don't know if I would say it was awful, but it's just not. It's no Wolfenstein 3D, you know, it's no Jill of the Jungle, so that was a little disappointing, but I can't say enough how happy I was to unlock this piece of nostalgia. And then in my after-school camp, we would have a computer class as well, and that was much less educational in terms of reading and writing. The most educational it got was actually in the form of filmmaking, I guess you could say. There were programs where you could do stop-motion animation, or where you could do Lego animation, and a teacher would help you and teach you how to, you know, do simple little films. And I did a lot of stop-motion when I was younger, and I gotta wonder if, you know, that helped me get more into filmmaking than I already was when I was a kid. But other than that, the biggest impact that after-school computer class had on me and my history with video games was the Harry Potter games. I played the first 2 Harry Potter games, I think, back then, over and over, and the memory of those games are what stuck with me for a while and had me, you know, thinking like, hey, you know what? The Harry Potter games are actually pretty good. I know they're just movie, you know, shovelware games, but I actually think they're pretty good. And then I seek them out, you know, and I collected most, if not all of them. No, well, most of them. I'm close to all of them. And, you know, those older games still are pretty darn good. So that was the world of video games when it came to school and education. Now, the last part of my memory when it comes to PC games growing up, at least where it comes to this era of games before the video games became more sophisticated and my relationship with them became more, I don't know, cultured or more educated. The last era I wanted to talk about was when I got my PC. I got my home PC. Luckily, my grandmother was nice enough to purchase one for me to help me get better with reading and writing. And it became the family PC. You know, we put it in the living room, and that was such a huge moment in our lives, all of our lives, that she was able to gift this to us. It really helped the whole family. But for me, it was just so exciting to have something new to play video games on. And then to, you know, try out the internet later, which had its own adventures when it came to video games. But the big things that I remember when it came to this PC and getting, like, my first PC was the Jumpstart games. The Jumpstart games were a series of educational games that I absolutely adored growing up. The two that I specifically had and that I played the most was Jumpstart Spelling, which had a lot of dinosaurs in it, which was of course exciting for me, and then Jumpstart Music. And these games, I went looking for gameplay recently, and wow, was it a kick of nostalgia to the brain. Again, this is another one. Jumpstart is easier for me to remember, but I did forget the specifics of these two games just because it had been so long since I had played them. And then when I finally remembered the names and I went looking up these games, it was a flood of nostalgia. It's really disappointing that these games, like Lego Island, haven't been preserved like a lot of other 90s PC games. For example, like the Humongous games. I don't have the strongest connection to the Humongous games. I love them. I think they're fantastic. I've played them now, and I think I did play them occasionally when I was a kid, but I don't have that strong nostalgia connection to them because I didn't really own them to my recollection, and I just wasn't playing them as frequently. But when it came to Jumpstart, and even, backyard sports. I wasn't a sports kid growing up. I didn't like sports, but it was one of those things where, the disc was there, so I guess I'll try it out. But specifically Jumpstart, I have this, huge nostalgic connection to, and it just seems like such a difficult task to replay them. And again, maybe there are other ways that I'm not looking into. I'm trying to find the best ways to replay these, including just buying an older PC. I know there are plenty of methods. If you want to, give suggestions in the comments, feel free. But just know that I'm looking into it. But I want to play the Jumpstart games again. I would like to play them more frequently, and I wish that they were more available on something like Steam or GOG, because it's just a part of my video game history, and just video game history in general, that is really neat and really interesting. And so I hope that we are able to preserve these games for newer audiences better as time goes on. I may not have the same nostalgia that others do for consoles like the PlayStation 2 or the N64, but I have some deep nostalgic connections to playing games on the PC in various forms. As a kid, getting a modern PC for the house really opened the door for video games that I had access to. There are a ton of PC games that I didn't mention in this video that have their own unique stories that affect the person that I am in the present. For example, like the Captain Crunch Crunchlings video game, a game that literally came from a cereal box that I treasured like nothing else. What a bizarre video game and a strange way to deliver it to children, but I'm happy that so many other people also remember this game. I wish there were more video games that were delivered to kids through cereal boxes like this, and I had my copy of this Crunchlings game until I moved last year, and unfortunately it shattered. But this seemingly disposable game had that much of a hold on me for that long. Another PC game that was a fixture of my childhood during this era was Lego Rock Raiders, a game that's totally weird but also totally cool, and that absolutely stands out now more than ever, especially since so many Lego games are so similar to each other. And not only did this original game stand out in terms of gameplay, its music once again was outstanding. Later on in my childhood, I vividly remember the disappointment when I was given the Peter Jackson King Kong game as a gift for my birthday, only to find that my brand new PC PC, several years old at that point, was too old to run the game. And that was really one of the first times that I encountered that concept, and learning that was really upsetting. But holding on to that memory of that disappointment led me to seek that game out later in life, and it's actually one of my favorite video games now. I really loved camping as a kid, and Camp Wonderoo was a strange and obscure children's game that really helped me connect with the outdoors when I wasn't able to get there. I played Croc 2 like nobody's business, and unfortunately I also remember finding a flight stick and realizing that it worked for the game and trying as hard as I could to play it, not realizing that that flight stick wasn't made for that style of video game. The Buzz Lightyear of Star Command video game, which was the video game that was connected to the animated series for Buzz Lightyear, was one of the first games that I felt determined to finish. A lot of games I didn't care whether I finished, I just enjoyed playing, but for some reason that Buzz Lightyear game was one that I really wanted to see the ending of. And while doing research for this video, I remembered the titles of so many games that I thought I had forgotten forever, and there are still plenty of games that I played in my past that I don't remember the specifics of now. For example, this racing game that I absolutely loved and I have this vivid memory of picking up in the store, but for the life of me I can't remember what it's called. I have a deep nostalgic connection to all of these games, and looking back at them I've realized that they affected me more than I thought, in ways that I didn't really expect, ways that shaped the kind of games that I played, but also when it came to how I engaged with the world. I was struggling to learn how to read as a kid. I had dyslexia and it was really tough for me, and a lot of these games were purchased in an effort to get me more interested in reading and to help me find new ways to read and write. And I have to imagine that even if it was a little bit, some of these games did help in that way. I feel very fortunate to have the history that I did with these kinds of video games. I was lucky enough to play games on MS-DOS and on PC. I was lucky enough to find games in my cereal boxes and at Scholastic book fairs. And occasionally, if I was really lucky, my parents would take me to Circuit City, I believe, and we'd pick up a brand new video game. But my point being that I only just scratched the surface of PC games that I played during my childhood, and I'm excited to look more into this era of video games moving forward. Now, oddly enough, while I was reminiscing about my nostalgia for 90s PC games, I discovered something strange in the woods around my house. I received a cryptic message from an unlisted phone number, and they told me to expect a package. And when I finally found it, I was surprised to find that it was a PC from the 90s. Now, I'm not entirely sure how I feel about having this piece of mysterious hardware in my house, but I can't deny that my curiosity, combined with my yearning for PC games from the past, have caused me to keep this thing and to start poking around inside of it. I only just turned it on the other day, and it seems as if there are a lot of games from my childhood on here. I'm really not sure how to feel about this, whether this has to do with the ghosts haunting my house, or my job, which has given me increasingly less hours at work. But whatever it is, I'm sure it's a lot less strange than the things I normally deal with here. I'm not exactly a computer expert, so I can't guarantee that I'll get these games running anytime soon. However, moving forward on the channel, I'm definitely going to be taking a deep dive into the games on this computer, and I'll let you know, for better or worse, what I find. Anyway, that's gonna do it for this video. I want to thank you so much for watching. If for some reason you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a like and to subscribe to my channel for more. As regular viewers know, I make a variety of content on the channel, and I'm always gonna make the videos that I want to make. But if you see something you enjoy, make sure to let me know, and I'll try to prioritize that kind of content in the future. Over on Twitch, I typically play superhero games like Marvel's Avengers and Marvel Snap, along with the occasional horror game like Resident Evil. So if that sounds interesting to you at all, make sure to check me out on Twitch at twitch.tv/carrotscraps. And all my other social media, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram, are at carrotscraps as well. So I want to thank you again so much for watching, and I'll see you soon. Alright, so when they dropped off the computer, I got this voicemail.
This is Paxton from the Sandsfin Central Mall, and I just wanted to let you know that we ended up dropping off the package in these scary woods around your house. Should be the, what is this? The Napa Wed, the 95, I think it is. If you have any questions, just feel free to call me back, and I'd be happy to answer. All right, have a good one.
You think they would be a little quieter? What was that sound in the background? Like, it's super rude to leave a message like that.